This is why I hate the Oklahoma Sooners.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member, currently in convalescence, recovering from brain surgery. Today's show, we're going to talk about why I hate the Oklahoma Sooners and share my take on the Ole Miss versus OU game in Norman this fall, even with a little roster work left to be done. I break down how I see the game unfolding and why it is one of the most important, if not fun, matchups on the Ole Miss schedule. Remember, we're free and available in all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy offer even more perspectives on college football, the SEC, and even Ole Miss. You know, it's really hard for me to come up with any ill will towards Oklahoma. So this first segment, and this one is going to be a challenge. It really is. Because we all know the arrogance that comes with Oklahoma fans. They're kind of like Penn State fans. They're there. They know they're expected to be good. They've been good all the way back to Bud Wilkinson back in the 50s, Barry Switzer in the Big 2+6, and then into the Big 12 just dominating that. They came into the SEC and kind of got slapped around a little bit. But on the other side, anytime that Ole Miss has played them in anything consequential, over the past 20 or so years, 25 years, Ole Miss has generally won. Other than an NCAA tournament game against Oklahoma, Ole Miss has found a way to come out on top. So there's not animosity built up between me and Oklahoma fans. I don't think of different traditions that they have that are annoying. So I'm going to do my best to try and find some stuff that kind of rubs me the wrong way. And we're going to start with Boomer Sooner. And I don't mean the cheer, I mean the song. It is the worst version of Rocky Top because if we're going to be honest, at least Rocky Top's an enjoyable song to listen to. If you got to hear it 370 times in a football game, at least it sounds cool. Boomer Sooner does not have it on its side. Boomer Sooner is ridiculous. You hear people singing all the time, Boomer Sooner, Boomer Sooner, Boomer Sooner. Yeah, it's nuts. Absolutely crazy. Now, we haven't interacted with the fan base in many occasions. Them coming down to Ole Miss, it was very pleasurable for everybody involved. It was two teams that just kind of played a football game. It honestly felt a bit like a non-conference game when Oklahoma came in a year ago. And I imagine the Ole Miss game going up to Norman's going to feel that way this year. You don't have the decades of animosity like Oklahoma and Missouri, even though they're in the Southeastern Conference together, or Texas A&M, or Texas. You don't have that. You don't have this weird situation where you're right next, 3 hours away from the University of Arkansas, but you've never played them on a football field. Ole Miss and Oklahoma just feels like a game. But because of what Oklahoma represents and because of the success that they have had over the years, this game is going to have a little bit more importance than it probably should have. And this game falls for Ole Miss right in the middle. If you talk about an NBA schedule, a schedule loss. That is where this Ole Miss-Oklahoma game follows. Right after Ole Miss travels to Georgia, they have to travel to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the Sooners. And after that, they get South Carolina at home. It's a very difficult place on the schedule. Now, there are several factors that we are going to discuss in the next segment of why this game has a chance to not be difficult at all, and this game has a chance to be an absolute bear. You have no idea right now where the Ole Miss game is going to fall in the spectrum of where they actually are and how big of a game it could be. So I know I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff over the next couple hours or next couple 30 minutes, whatever. But this Ole Miss Oklahoma game is going to be a masterful, fun game for fans. This is a road trip that Ole Miss fans have never gotten to take. Going to the Palace on the Prairie, I think that's what it's called. Sitting all the logos, seeing the Boomer Schooner wagon on the football field, seeing the two horses, all of the traditions that Oklahoma has, and they do have tradition. They are a storied franchise. They are an honest to God blue blood in college football. But Ole Miss has next to no tradition of playing Oklahoma. You have the 1999 Independence Bowl, Deuce McAllister game, David Cutcliffe, Ole Miss beat Oklahoma, and Mike Leach in Shreveport. You've got the College World Series, National Championship Series. Ole Miss beat Oklahoma there. You've got a football game a year ago to where Ole Miss kind of took care of business in that game as well. And you have a basketball tournament game where Oklahoma kind of put it to Kermit Davis and the Ole Miss Rebels. That's kind of it. When it comes to history, that is kind of it. And they haven't done anything to me personally, or to any way that I can see that would cause animosity. Things that build a rivalry. There's not been close losses. There's not been very controversial plays that Ole Miss fans are going to have with every single SEC fan except Oklahoma. And because they have Texas, they've played Texas. And that's interesting. This video is difficult for me to make because there's next to no animosity between Ole Miss and Oklahoma. I want some animosity. It makes my job a whole lot easier when there is. But there's just not. So we'll see exactly how that goes for Ole Miss whenever they get up to Norman, Oklahoma. This upcoming game could be a tough test for the Ole Miss Rebels. Winning in Norman, Oklahoma isn't easy. Just ask Alabama, who fell to Oklahoma 24-3 last November. We'll discuss what Ole Miss needs to do to succeed next. All right, this game in Oklahoma has a chance to be a very tricky game, and I'm not sure how it's going to fall. It could go several different directions. One avenue is John Mateer really takes off, and you're going to be dealing with a 9-win level team at Oklahoma. And there is a lot of talented players on that roster. I said this last year. Just because Ole Miss was better last year doesn't mean they're going to be better next year, because the roster talent plays when you play Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma has a chance to have a pretty good football team. They also have a chance to be an absolute dumpster fire by the time Ole Miss gets to Norman, Oklahoma. Because of Oklahoma's schedule, because a certain results-based thing, I don't know what the sliding scale looks like. Brent Venables is absolutely on the hot seat. They're also retooling their program and how they're handling NIL and having general managers and all of that. There is a lot in flux in Oklahoma, and if it goes wrong, there's major dumpster fire potential. But this is Oklahoma and a lot of talented players, which means it could be a very, very tough ball game. This game has more ability to fluctuate than any other game on Ole Miss's schedule. You just don't know what you're going to get when you get up there. And after you take on the Georgia Bulldogs in Sanford, which you know exactly what you're going to get in that game, you're going to get a team that kind of wants to street fight with you, brawl you, and just beat you down. That's what's going to be on Georgia's mind after what happened to them in Oxford a year ago. In Oklahoma, you just don't know. Mid-October, that is right in the little brink of time that if an interim coach isn't in charge of Oklahoma, you're going to have lots of people talking about changes that need to be made. Again, like I said, John Mateer could work out. They could have a pretty good offense. Their defense could be all right. They could win 9 games. next season, beat Texas, beat LSU, rolling pretty good. That makes the Ole Miss game tricky, makes it tough. And when you look at a team like Oklahoma, I talked in the first segment, the only thing that I really have about them that's annoying right now is the fact that they didn't really play in a conference when they were in the Big 2+6. They dominated the Big 12, which wasn't much of a conference either. And they crow about it over and over and over and over again. And then also the Boomer Sooner thing's just annoying, like annoyingly annoying. But that's about it. Because like I said earlier in the show, anytime that Ole Miss has played Oklahoma with anything meaningful on the line, Ole Miss has won generally, with the exception of one basketball tournament game. Ole Miss won a baseball national championship by taking down Oklahoma. They won an Independence Bowl by taking down Oklahoma, and they won the conference game in Oxford last season, taking down Oklahoma with their brand new hip Realtree helmets on. So this game has a chance to get weird. It just does. I mean, if Brent Venables loses to Texas, if they're coming in sitting at 3-4 losses to where his tenure's over, he's not going to survive. And Oklahoma has to decide what they want to do. With the nature of the transfer portal and all of that, I think you are in a position to where you will make a move as early as possible. Or the other thing is, we're not even thinking about it, the athletic director or general manager, whoever is calling the shots, because after Andrew Luck fired Stanford's coach as a general manager, that kind of lets you know they're doing things a little bit differently. Oklahoma could just decide to keep him till the transfer portal window opens, so there's not two windows. You don't give up a second window. I don't know. We'll have to see exactly how it goes. I know Brent Venables on defense, very good coach. He's a very good defensive coach. He basically is responsible for Clemson winning national championships. They haven't done it since he's been gone, I don't think. And I think that's something to keep an eye on. Now, Oklahoma's kind of been built in his image. Tough, hard-nosed, all of that stuff. But the injuries just ate them up a year ago. So I don't know if you can go necessarily off last season to determine about this Oklahoma team. This is another situation to where you just don't know about this game. Like I said, this is a game that Ole Miss could walk up to Norman and win by 5 touchdowns because Oklahoma is just a dumpster fire. They fired Brent Venables. They put an interim coach that doesn't know what he's doing. This is absolutely possible. And you could also walk up to a pretty dang good Oklahoma team that's going to be difficult to beat on Owen Field in the Palace in the Prairie or whatever it's called. You could walk in and see that as well, right after you've taken on Georgia and right before you face South Carolina. I'm telling you, this game intrigues the heck out of me. And we'll see exactly how it goes for Ole Miss whenever it does it. In our final segment, you know, this is the most fun road trip for Ole Miss on the schedule. And honestly, it's kind of hard to hate much of anything about OU right now. So stay tuned. All right, let's get into the final segment right now. This is probably going to be the most fun game of the season for people that like to travel to football games, that want to go, that want to experience different cultures and different people. Because Oklahoma, outside of on the field and in the stadium, it's not really an SEC vibe of what's going on. They still have to work on their tailgating game. Some of the nicest people you're going to run across. I've never had a problem anytime I've met an Oklahoma fan. Genuinely nice people. They can be a little annoying because of the Boomer Sooner thing and all of the team sports aspects that everybody has. But for the most part, they're decent people. That's just like Texas A&M fan. For the most part, decent people. The traditions kind of get in the way. You don't have that problem with Oklahoma. You know, we joke all the time about Texas A&M kind of got so loudmouth in the SEC that the SEC had to go get their natural predator in the Texas Longhorns, which they did. I think Oklahoma has been brought on as Texas defense. They don't want another Texas A&M, so they needed Oklahoma to come in to handle the Texas Longhorns, because the way it's situated with Oklahoma, I don't count on Texas winning that game every single year. I don't know if I ever count on Texas winning the game at all, because Oklahoma as such had their number over the years. But all of that going on, I think Ole Miss fans need to just look at this game as the funness that it could be. Going up there in their stadium, seeing all of that. You know, those games that we used to watch on Thanksgiving or the Saturday after, the Oklahoma-Nebraska game back in the big 2+6, usually an Orange Bowl berth on the line. Everybody's seen games in that stadium. Now you get to go see your team in that stadium. Because, like I said, Oklahoma is a genuine blue blood. They're a real blue blood. They're struggling right now, but that's not necessarily their fault. Whenever they decided to come into the SEC, they were told to get their offensive and defensive line in order. They were flat out told about that. Texas did. Texas had a good O-line. Texas had a good D-line. Oklahoma had injuries on the O-line, so we don't know what they had. D-line, okay. But them not having it was problematic coming in the SEC. I think they're going to take a jump in year 2. I think they're going to be better than they were a year ago in year 2. And I think John Mateer is going to be a good quarterback. But I don't think that they kind of have the goods to beat Ole Miss if Ole Miss plays well. If Ole Miss plays well, there's not many teams in the conference that can beat them. Ole Miss has to beat themselves at this point. And once you hit that level, once you get to that good, that is something that happens to every single team. You have to play down to your opponent for the opponent to be in the ballgame. Oklahoma can be good enough to beat you, but Oklahoma can also be bad enough that you win by several touchdowns. So we'll see exactly what happens there. It should be a fun game for Ole Miss fans traveling up to Norman, Oklahoma, and we'll see. All right, so it's May 8th right now. May 8th. I'm recording this ahead of time before my surgery. I'm still convalescing from my surgery, and the way this is going to work, since this is the time frame to talk about that, is if I come back sometime in the next 2 or 3 days or 2 weeks or whenever that is, if there are evergreens left to go, if there are like 4 more Why I Hate videos, I'm still going to play them. And I'm going to slowly ease myself back in as well. Again, if you're looking for anything that you can do, watch every single video on the channel, or you don't even have to watch it, just play it. Subscribe, all of that good stuff. And if you're over on the podcast channels, you can please subscribe to that podcast, comment, rate, review, all of that. We'd appreciate that as well. If you're looking for something a little bit more to do, you can join our subtext group. The link is down in the description. Check that out. It's $5 a month. I get every single penny of it. So we're doing that instead of a GoFundMe at the moment. So I'd appreciate that a lot as well. Again, this was a difficult video to do because there's not a lot of reasons to hate Oklahoma, because there's just no history between Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Familiarity breeds contempt. That old chestnut, that doesn't exist necessarily with the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, it might exist soon, especially if they set it up a 9-game schedule to where every team plays every other team in the Southeastern Conference every 4 years twice, to where a senior gets a home and away at Oklahoma. If that happens, there's going to be some contempt. But the 3 permanent opponents will be Arkansas, Mississippi State, and LSU. And the rest would just alternate. So we'll see exactly how it goes. It should be a lot of fun. But I hopefully am recovering well. Like I said, I'm recording this about a week before I go under the knife. I am going to try and update everybody from time to time. Follow me on social media. The Twitter handle is right there underneath my name. You follow me there, you'll be able to see the first time I'm able to do social media, I will. And I will let everybody know how I'm doing and that I feel up to it. I figure the first week is going to be pretty bad, honestly. But after that, it's going to slowly get better and better. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, I should be ready to get back on the podcast. Not necessarily full time, but at least kind of getting ready so I know what's going on as well. So we'll see. So thank you for watching the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the number one Ole Miss podcast out there. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen day. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC and Chris Gordy. He covers the Southeastern Conference like no other and uses his platform to find some of the more interesting storylines around the Southeastern Conference. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you later.